Hey, folks. Once again, it's Deadpool Negative. So I've been facing a dilemma lately. I wanted to record a video about the Pit, but everyone's recorded a video about how great the Pit is. And then Starfleet Academy aired, and I wanted to record a video about that, but everyone's recorded a video about just kidding, how awful Starfleet Academy is, except for, Jesse Gender. Um, don't ignore the fact that like one of her friends writes for the show. Um, but I watched Starfleet Academy because there's an old Vulcan proverb: only Nixon could sit through the last three seasons of the X Files. But I watched it, and I watched the Pit, which also Starfleet Academy appeared on the January 15th with two new episodes, and The Pit aired the second episode of its second season on the 15th. So I have them both on my mind, because I watched them all the same day, and I had a lot to think about. And I wanted to kind of compare and contrast these shows and what The Pit gives Star Trek fans that the Kurtzman era of Star Trek doesn't, won't, can't. Not that I'm saying the pit is without sin. I'm going to get that to in a sec. But I want people to understand there is a way back to Star Trek, and looking at the Pit is an example. Now, I want to talk about both series real quick in their origins. The Pit began as, and I had theorized about this for years when a revival after revival kept coming, that we eventually get an ER reboot, probably with Noah Wiley, because Noah Wiley is great at two things: playing John Carter, and in The Pit, playing Robbie Ravinovich. And if you disagree, there's about one other thing he's done that I like: The Pirates of Silicon Valley. And he was also currently before the Pit, he was on Leverage Redemption, and while the material was not great, he really seemed checked out on it. But depending on who you ask, this ER reboot became the original plan was examining a post-COVID world with John Carter mentoring a new batch of students, much like Benton mentored him. And depending on who you ask, um, they decided to make the Pit to screw the Michael Crichton state out of what was entitled to. And I kind of sort of believe that just by the way it went out. But honestly, the Pit works better not as an ER reboot, because if it was an ER reboot, well, first of all, there's a character. Now, Robbie Ravinovich and John Carter are two extremely different individuals. That's one thing that works. Robbie Ravinovich is an angrier, older, more bitter person than John Carter probably would be if he were working in Cook County in 2026. And there's also a character in the flashbacks, although there is still ER similarities, there is a character in flashbacks who died of COVID who is clearly meant to be Peter Benton, and I don't think the fan base of ER would have forgiven them for killing him off. I'm not sure I would have. Um, but let's back. But let's get on to it. The Pit is wound up being one of the most acclaimed shows of the 2025. It has flaws. I would actually recommend you fast forward through all of episode 8. Um, it's not perfect. It has like there is a point in the show where they basically look directly at the audience and start ranting about how you shouldn't like not give your children vaccines, which given the amount of like actual doctors that have consulted on the show is understandable, but it also feels like it grinds the story to a halt. Um, Sometimes it can be like watching an episode of especially in season one, not much in season two, Sometimes it can be watching an episode of The Resident with five Conrads. Um, but there's also a very good humanistic element to it. There are characters that reveal nuance and depth. It doesn't spell everything out for you. I mean, there's like a subtle. One of the things I like about the second season premiere. There's a subtle line. There's a subtle line that reveals that two characters are sleeping with each other, but it comes with a recruit exchange between another character who's that character's roommate. I thought that was clever than saying, well, being on the nose like Star Trek Starfleet Academy is. Um, but I remember watching it twice. Watching and like it's well made. Like it has a way of like just really getting to you with some of these characters. It's probably one of the few shows where the characters felt fully formed and complete out of the gate. That's a rare show. The Sopranos, The X Files. Usually, a show takes what season and a half, season and a half, half a season between season and a half to really get the characters. Like even ER, I don't think really kind of clicked its entire cast until maybe the end of the first season. Where like, but everyone almost every character on the Pitt feels like very real and very fully formed. Robbie is a good doctor who cares about his job, but is also frayed edges. Um, Dana the nurse, played by an act. It's always nice when you see an actress that you've seen in stuff as a supporting actor for decades suddenly play one character. And Catherine Lanassa, if you look at her, is a beautiful woman, but she's dressed down as Nurse Dana, and it's just amazing how she just like comes in and almost takes over the show with her likability and humanity. And that's not like hasn't shown those quads before in her earlier roles, but it's just like, oh, that feels good. That feels great. You just see. Um, but what I want to talk about the contrast with Starfleet Academy is Starfleet Academy and the Pit are both series about young people trying to learn and be better. In the case of Starfleet Academy, it's the new candidates for Starfleet, an organization which also has doctors. In fact, they have a doctor character. They have the Doctor on Starfleet, Robert Picardo, who hasn't played this character in 25 years, and it's like David Tennant. Whenever he shows up as Doctor Who, it feels like he just walked off the set the last like it's been a day since the last time he played it. I mean, Picardo has no problem getting back into this character, and his appearance in the show and as highlights Starfleet Academy. Academy. Ooh. Uh, um, it is interesting that they even share Star Trek and the Pit even share one cast member, Isa Briones, who was on the first two seasons of Picard, which, as we all know, is some of the worst Star Trek conceived by a human mind. Um, unless you uh, unless you count and although I haven't been able to finish, literally have not been able to finish Star Trek Discovery season 5, so the jury is kind of out on that. And that was not Miss Brione's fault. There was nothing those actors could do. Well, there was one thing one actor could have done, but we'll talk. That's a discussion for another time. There's even an actor. The series, The Pit, was created by a writer who's worked with producer John Wells called R. Scott Gemmill. And there's an actor on Starfleet Academy named Scott Gemmill. No relation. It's just funny. Um, but it's both shows are about younger people learning from their elders, kind of in Starfleet Academy, and trying to figure out what to do with their lives. And it provides a really interesting contrast. I I've been watching Kurtzman Trek since 2017. I've dipped in and out with my Paramount Plus subscription. I've I've suffered, but that was my choice to suffer. I have to admit, I think the best way to sum up what's been going on with Star Trek, it's there are people who are trying so hard to not get the traditional Trek audience. They're not creating good television. They're creating something that'll appeal to people, but they're so intent on fixating on certain things, like queer representation, or in the second episode of Starfleet Academy, deaf representation, or like making sure we like the characters, making sure their character is quote unquote good, that it doesn't, it feels manipulative and hollow. And this is, and with Starfleet Academy, this is the third series from Kurtzman that we've been asked, we presented with a character that is tremendously unlikable, self-absorbed, only cares about themselves, and we are meant to just take them as is, not expecting a redemption arc. Now, and I'm talking, of course, first we had Michael Burnham, who caused World War III in The Vulcan Hello. We have Mariner Beckett, and Lower Decks was a comedy show, but she was a bitch. I mean, the show, to its credit, slowly built a redemptive arc around her that I thought really worked, but the problem was she was the driver of the most, being a jerk was the driver of most of the action on the show, so it couldn't really last as long, more than 5 seasons. And then they did a retcon on Lower Decks explaining why Mariner Beckett is so rebellious and so, questioning of Starfleet and its motives. And here at this point, I thought she was Edward. No, they gave a very specific reason, and that reason completely blows the show apart. Once you know the real reason why, Mariner Beckett dislikes the Federation's rules, you don't understand why in the world she's in the Federation. This happens at the end of around the end of season 4, and I just couldn't watch the series after that because there's no reason Mariner Beckett should be in the Federation. Ugh. And here, with Starfleet Academy, we have Caleb Meir. Now, what kind of astonished me, and it actually astonished me, I looked up all the young actors playing the younger. These are people who have maybe, mostly Canadian actors have a low amount of credits to their name, like at least one the exception of possibly Bella Shepherd. All these actors are people who've been around, like maybe done one or two things. And the biggest problem to me is Caleb Meir is played by Sandro Rosta. This is the first thing Sandro, excuse me, I apologize for making it sound like Sandra, but I can't help it. This is this poor guy's first role. He has one short film to his credit. That is astonishing. Not that, like, he's not a bad actor, but he's not an actor who's ready to play a character this unlikable. Well, I mean, I don't think he's meant to be unlikable. They just think they have to write him as a hard-edged because that's what the manual told them to write. I'm gonna have to get out of my system all this stuff about Caleb Meir. Not so much again. It's more like the circumstances. Opening of the series is a flashback where we see apparently his mother, played quite well by Tatiana Maslany, when he was 6, was working with a criminal named Nusbraka, and she was it's the details are kind of hazy, but details are kind of hazy. But Caleb's mother, Anisha, is ruled as an accomplice to the death of several Federation officers. He was stealing food, like Brock. She was paying Braca to steal food from a Federation supply vessel. This is during the burn, and I think before Discovery arrives in the 32nd century. Um, so she goes to a work camp, and Braca goes to jail, and Nala sits down Caleb and says, I know this is wrong. I know this feels unfair to you, but I made sure I will be taken care of. You'll be taken care of. Now, Holly Hunter is Holly Hunter. It's honestly, this character, Nala Ake, is a character. Well, first of all, she's a Lathanite. And for some reason, they call her a half human, half Lathanite. When we've seen a full blooded Lathanite, and they don't look any different from a human, except the one full blooded Lathanite you want to murder the moment they walk on screen and open their mouth. This show has a real obsession with hybrids, as we'll see. So Nala says, and Caleb, just angry that his mother was, imprisoned, like, also Nala promises him he'll see his mother. He'll get visitation. She'll get visitation rights. Caleb just escapes. 6-year-old boy somehow escapes a starship. I'm saying he's 6 because I think Caleb is supposed to be 21 when we see him as an adult, but Sandra Orosta, who is, I think, that correct age, looks like he's 30. He's just a beautiful looking person. He looks nice, but he also looks too old. It's not that he looks old, he looks built. So, of course, we jump 15 years later and nothing significant has happened in those 15 years. Nala Ake was so embarrassed and ashamed by the kid escaping that she resigned from Starfleet immediately and became a teacher on Bajor. Yet later she says, Caleb, I searched for you everywhere. You know what? I don't care if she's a Lathanite. Someone said, well, if she's a Lathanite, she would have resources. I'm like, I don't care. You know what help is working for being a part of, to help find that a 6-year-old kid, working as part of Starfleet. Caleb, of course, has gone on to becoming a jerk because he's been alone for 15 years, scavenging, somehow becoming a master hacker, a bloody, brutal criminal, and Nala never noticed his criminal record floating around. And then here's the funny part, because we get to see, thank God, Charles Vance. Now, Admiral Charles Vance, as played by the Israeli actor Oded Fehr, has been one of the best parts of Kurtzman era Trek. From the moment he's been on screen, he feels like a Starfleet officer. He feels like a human. He feels like somebody who would be on a show that I remember, that I would want to watch featuring Star Trek. The best moment on Discovery is in the 3rd season, when confronted with the fact that when Vance meets with the leader of the Emerald Chain to make a deal to empower the Federation and revive it, and he says, and he comes close, and he says, no, this is not the Federation. This is not who we are. I cannot compromise my morals for some greater good. The Federation will find a way than allying themselves with criminals. I may be misremembering the scene, but it was nice to see a person with an actual Federation comm badge and not act like a jerk or a miserable person or someone with angst and trauma that excuses their behavior. Because there comes a point where angst and trauma does not excuse a person's behavior. Trust me on this. He says, oh, by the way, of course, Nala doesn't want to come back to the Federation. He's like, by the way, we've located Caleb. We can get him. We can lead you to him. Just become the head of become a captain of a ship, and run Starfleet Academy." And she's like, "Okay." It's a very, there's something odd. Like, people have complained about the way Holly Hunter sits around the ship. Like, I think part of it, it's difficult because I think Ake is either Ake is written to be like unconventional captains, like we have a conventional captain, Christopher Pike on Strange New Worlds, and as we've seen the past season, the show has tried more and more to marginalize him and shove uh, other characters to the front and center. Strange New Worlds season 3 is such a bizarre mess that, but like I really think somebody in the writing staff has an in for Anson Mount. But again, we're not talking about Strange. And like, but there's this whole, she flops in a chair, like she sits there reading a book with her reading glasses. There's a rather comical scene where she takes out her reading glasses to read something out of her pocket and then hands it to her number one, who puts it in her pocket. And I'm like, what? And then she goes back to sit on and then she goes back to sit on her chair, and a display pops up in front of her. I'm like, doesn't she need her reading grad? She just read another display with her reading glasses the same distance away from her. What is going on here? But of course, not like, and of course, Caleb is bitter. All Caleb cares about is finding his mother. Also, all of a sudden, her mother was sent to a prison. Hey, Nala, might have prevented Nishamir from being in prison? Being in Starfleet. She says, "I'll help you." Like, she doesn't appeal to any good nature of. I don't like Star Trek '09 at all, but I have to admit that, like, when Christopher Pike is played by Bruce Greenwood, says, "Prove to me you can do better." That is a good scene. That is a good moment. That, makes this not this kind of childish version of Kirk. Think about, like, Nala doesn't appeal to any sense of goodness within Caleb. She said, "I'll help you find your mom if you join Starfleet Academy." And like, of course, the Nusbraka just happens to be Nusbraka, who's played by Paul Giamatti in a performance that, okay, here's another hybrid, a half Tellarite, a half Klingon. I don't know why this is because he doesn't look like a Tellarite or a Klingon. He looks like a Cyclo with endless options for renewal. I'm not happy about that. I love Paul Giamatti. Billions is a wonderful show. This isn't Paul Giamatti at his best. It feels like a greatest hits, like of kind of like Hunter's performance, a greatest hits of all their acting ticks. I mean, it wouldn't bother me so much if I didn't read it. Like, this was basically his idea. He wanted to work on Star Trek. They gave him the script for Starfleet Academy. He said, "You can pick any role," and this is what he picked. But Caleb Meir is a jerk. Sandro Rosta is not an experienced actor to really give him any depth yet. Like, I honestly feel bad for this guy because the writers have stacked the deck against him. But that's the thing; these writers don't think in those terms. The creator of the show and credited with the pilot is a woman named Gaia Violo, who has a mystery series that was on Amazon with what's her name from Castle to her name, and I believe the actual showrunner is Noga Landau, who was best known for the Nancy Drew show, which in oh yeah, I just reminded him of the Nancy Drew that thing Scott Wolf did before Doc, I'll call it that. In the second episode, he manipulates a Beta Z princess and nearly causes a diplomatic incident and jeopardizes the Betazoids rejoining the Federation just to find his mom again. And of course, there's also like Nusbraka like implies that like his mother's dead. They find a signal, and it's like, all we know is Maslany has signed on for more episodes. So who knows where this going? I just don't care. I've seen this miserable character before on 2 other Star Trek shows. And like everybody's got a miserable stack on all these Star Trek shows. It's tiresome. You know, like one of the things I like about Charles Vance, he doesn't walk around talking about his dead kids. Same with President Relac. She's running the fucking Federation. She doesn't have time to talk about her. Like, Nala Ake can't be just wanting to find Caleb out of the goodness of her heart. Oh no! Everybody's got a selfish reason. No. She sits down with Caleb at the end and admits her son died when the burn happened. And she's been mourning him for 100 years. And I'm like, fuck you! And it's not fuck you to the character, it's fuck you to the writers, because this wasn't necessary. You don't have to keep personalizing every single character on this show. You do not. And you know what show does not personalize everything? The Pitt. The Pitt has characters who have various backgrounds. They have characters who have trauma. In the first season, there's a character who goes through a miscarriage. Like, there's a character who gets beat up, but it doesn't define them. They don't talk about it all the time. In this show, I know we're going to be talking about it all the time. And another thing, Caleb is meant to be this rebel, outsider, our gateway into the Federation's new revived Starfleet. And I keep thinking, well, everybody's going to this new place. Like, I'll give you a contrast. Like, Pitt season 1, the Whitaker character, he's awkward. He gets almost comedically, but he's dedicated to a craft. All these characters are dedicated to craft. If there's one character who I would say is a jerk on the Pitt, it's the Trinity Santos character played by Asa Briones. I mean, there is a character who's also kind of awful, but they have reasons. But she's egotistical. She's right, but she's also a jerk about it. She's like she mistakes like being really insulting for playful ribbing. But there's also times when you see her being very caring. There's a very tense sequence of events in the premiere in the second episode where she and a nurse Perlah, played by an excellent actress whose name I cannot remember right now, deal with a kid that is pretty obviously being abused. And the show has implied before that Trinity is a victim of an abuse, or at least knows someone who is. And but she doesn't like freak out this time or try to be a superhero with it. She walks through it logically, follows the rules. Caleb Meir just sulks, manipulates. One of the odder things on the show, like that bothered me, like there is a British accented character named Darum Remy, played by an actor named George Hawkins, or is it a Keonian. Now, there is an attack by Nusbraka on the Athena, the Starfleet Academy ship in the premiere, and there's a big like, well, all these kids come together, like Caleb has his hacking skills. The Klingon doctor is a doctor. Genesis Lithe, the Dar Shah, is a leader, and Genesis Lithe is really the main, should have been the main character of the show. Um, but Darum nearly dies trying to save the ship. He goes out and does something genuinely heroic. He nearly dies. And in the next episode, like, Caleb, of course, gets to room with them, ha ha ha, and they're screaming at each other. Like, no, man, he's earned your respect. He almost died to save that ship. He's not a dick. He's not the cocky guy we're going to laugh at, because we know he's willing to do something. Like, it speaks to the way these writers have these weird ideas about what heroism is. Like, people can't actually be heroic out of the goodness of their hearts. They either got to do it out of survival or, well, trauma. Again, I mean, on the Pitt, Robbie's trauma is clearly defined. He loses not Peter Benton during COVID, and I'm trying to avoid spoilers for a good chunk of the Pitt, but because I want you to watch this. If you haven't seen the Pitt, I want you to watch it. But a good chunk of the Pitt, but his trauma is also a problem. It's not a character quirk. He has a breakdown, a serious breakdown, late in the series because of something that happened, because of like a tragedy that he's like, there's a tragedy he's trying to contain. And again, some of Wiley's best work as an actor. Like, like it's not, it's bad. It's bad. Like, and the Whitaker character, again, he's a goofy and like strange, but he can sometimes, but he also has a heart. He knows what to do. Like in the Pitt, the character's quirks and flaws work with the story. In Starfleet Academy and most in Kurtzman Trek, it feels like they're working against the story. And that's what I can't stand. I'll go through another. It just strikes me, and I want to let me go over Genesis Lithe for a minute. Now, Genesis Lithe is again the Dar Shah daughter of her admiral, and it's kind of funny because on the Pitt we find out a doctor named Javadi is actually the daughter of a huge surgeon, popular surgeon named Javadi. Played. Oh shoot, sorry, I can't remember these actors' names at the moment. And that I would have to say, like, the Pitt kind of flirts with cliche, especially in the first season. Like, will the young prodigy doctor of the big surgeon stand up to her mother? Yes. In the second season, they're doing something different with that relationship, which they haven't revealed. But what I liked Genesis Lithe, out of all the characters, because she doesn't have any nervousness or Nepo baby angst. I mean, she doesn't really do much except, like, this is why isn't she the point of view character? Because she seems to actually care about Starfleet and its ideals and not what Starfleet can do for her. That's the problem with Caleb Meir. He only cares about what Starfleet can do for him. It doesn't help that Bella Shepherd is an extremely small-framed woman, just like Holly Hunter. Like, in fact, they are. One of the things, Ake is quirky, but she has confidence. She struts around. She doesn't come off as arrogant. I mean, yes, Darren Remy was heroic, but he is arrogant. So that's, but like, I just keep thinking, like, this is an actual person that would be in Starfleet Academy, not a bunch of like meathead jocks. Um, I'm going to bring out some other characters. The one pureblood Klingon character we see so far is Jaden Craig, play an actor named Karam Deanne, and there's no really, I can't really relate him to anything on the Pitt. Sorry, but it's like again, here's an idea: a pacifist Klingon that is obsessed with medicine, and they don't give him really anything to do yet. Like, well, who is that character? Why is he like that? We don't learn anything about what the Klingons have been like in the 32nd century, the era of the burn. Um, so it's kind of like, eh. There's another problem. All these shows now have to do a quote unquote autistic coded character. Now, I myself am not autistic. I'm not on any spectrum. And quite frankly, I don't want to be diagnosed or checked because I don't want that to be an excuse for my behavior. There is a character on this show named, excuse me, Karis Brooks. I mean, the actress is Karis Brooks. She's called Sam. She's from a planet called Cask, and we find out she's only existed for 4 months and was created, basically a planet of holograms, just like the Doctor. In fact, like she fangirls over the Doctor. Like she's existed for 4 months and was programmed to be a 17-year-old. And this apparently means like jumping around, clapping, going, yay, yay, yay. And I think, okay, she understands social cues. She doesn't understand the Doctor doesn't want to deal with her right now. I mean, there was people complaining, like, I don't mentor people, the Doctor says. Yeah, he did, like, yeah, he doesn't mentor people because he's got other odd responsibilities at Starfleet Academy. And it's just like, like, these shows don't realize how, like, difficult some of these people would actually be in real life. Except the Pitt does. There's a character who is somewhat autistic coded. Hold on for a moment. I'm sorry, I have to look this up. I can't. The actor's name has the character's name has completely flown out of my head. Okay, Mel King, Tierley Dearden, played by Tara Dearden. She is somewhat on the spectrum, and she's not autistic because they cast an actually autistic actor to play her sister, that she is actually the caretaker of sometimes. And her character's quirky but relatable. She doesn't understand social cues, but like she can manage herself. With the photonic character named Sam, and I'm gonna have to put a lot of blame of this on the actress because apparently they had written the role very differently. But the more she did whatever she was doing, the more they wrote for her. And I don't understand people that need to see a reflection of a completely annoying person. There is definitely a chance, like, again, this is where you write to this character becoming honorable and becoming a part of Starfleet. Like, she's going to be better. And they don't do that on Kurtzman's Trek. They just kind of like expect us to accept these characters' flaws and all, instead of wanting them to see in a journey. Mel King, Dennis Whitaker, Victoria Javadi, all, all seem to understand, like, all seem to, like, change and evolve over the first season of the Pitt. They don't lose their quirks, but they learn to, like, make them a part of, control themselves as as being a doctor as part of their lives. I don't see that on Starfleet Academy. I don't see that I don't see unity on Starfleet Academy. I don't see these characters to think outside of the pilot they're going to come together and be like the exception of Blythe, but they don't do anything with her. The character just they didn't write her as the main character like they should have. These people don't feel like there's a really propellant scene in the second episode where like we're supposed to like go ooh cool when Caleb like, hey, this is the revival of our xenobiology class. You think a guy who by his own way had to sleep in dumpsters for 15 years would say, I'd like to learn about something about the world now that I have free room and board at fucking Starfleet Academy. But no, he's just sitting there thinking, this ain't cool, man. I hate Starfleet. Like I felt like so. All I felt was like pity for the actor. I didn't feel this was a part where Jet Reno shows up. And let me tell you something. I like Tig Notaro as a stand-up comedian. Tig Notaro as an actor is not something I ever signed up for. Outside of Instant Family, like as an actor, she's kind of a wash. So, as much as I think your stand-up's pretty good, but I don't buy Jet Reno. I don't really think being an instructor is the kind of person Jet Reno wants to be anyway. Like she'd probably want to still be out there. I don't get it. Other than like they have her, and they could not get the actress who played Tilly to show up yet, and she is apparently signed on to appear. And that reminds me, the episode that sort of wrote off Tilly from Discovery. There was an actress in an episode called All Is Possible that I remembered called Amanda Arcuri. And while Amanda Arcuri is not Laurence Olivier, Amanda Arcuri is a much stronger and more charismatic screen presence than pretty much every character playing the young students. I was tremendously disappointed with that. Like, it's not that they're bad, it's just that these people are just untested. And I just thought that was weird. Especially for a show shot in Toronto, which produces lots of good actors. Zoe Steiner shows up in episode 2 as another main character, as the daughter of the Beta Z leader who Caleb romances and manipulates to get more information about the location of his mother. And again, makes the character look like a jerk. Again. And she's maybe somewhat interesting. She's very likable. But they also have this storyline like, well, she's joining the War College. Oh yeah, they've separated the Starfleet, quote unquote, with the War College. And is this going to be a jocks and nerds thing? Because I don't think that works. I don't think that works at all. But I would actually argue probably the character Arcuri played in All Is Possible probably would have graduated by Starfleet by now. So, but back to the Pit. Like, all these characters are dedicated to their job, and I care about them. I want them to be, and in Starfleet Academy, I'm just frustrated with these characters. I'm frustrated with the way, after nearly a decade of Star Trek television, Secret Hideout has not learned a thing about writing a character differently than they always have. I don't know. I mean, Alex Kurtzman directed these episodes. He's not credited with writing them, but his creative hand is felt all over it. And the question I've wondered is, I don't care how much this pays you, Mr. Kurtzman. You clearly do not enjoy this. Also, this isn't Marvel, and your editor isn't Tom Brevoort. You're going to have to actually turn a profit with this stuff eventually. I mean, but no, That's kind of mean to Alex Kurtzman. Um, I just, but like, who am I? But I look, I wish. The problem is Starfleet Academy seasons 1 and 2 are wrapped, and with Paramount's new ownership, this may actually be the only seasons we'll have. But I would love to sit down Gaia Violo, Noga Landau, and the writers of Star Trek Starfleet Academy. I'd like them to sit down and watch all the episodes of the Pitt that have aired, because you can do this. You can do a story about characters who are prickly and nice and bent out of shape, and not make it incredibly alienating, which is Starfleet Academy is doing. Also, that set is insane. I can't believe how much money you spent on what looks like a neon mall. I don't understand why you have characters screaming bro in the 32nd century, but I'll let that slide. I really think if you told the actress to play Sam to tone it the fuck down, she would be more interesting instead of what she is, which is cringy. I really think if you shift the focus to Genesis Live, it feel like more like a Star Trek show, because you don't, and it has nothing to do with representation. You have to understand this. There are gay characters on the Pitt. I mean, there are characters on the Pitt who have problems, but like, serious problems. But it's not thuddingly obvious. It's not you can do better. I know you can do better. I think in the case of some of you, you want to do better, but there's something stopping you from doing better. And the roadmap to better Star Trek is you sit down and watch The Pitt, and you think about what a disparate group of people come together to do every day, and how their flaws don't define them. You don't write, but they're just a part of them, because what defines them is being good at their jobs and helping people, which is what the Star Trek I remember growing up watching was all about. And I'm going to wrap this up with one more thing, because there's a character I haven't discussed yet. There is one character, once you get past the part where it has to be explained how the hell this character can even exist, there's a character who is now is number one, named Thok, and it is, I am not joking about this, a Jem'Hadar Klingon hybrid. Now, this character is visually weird. This character has been clowned on a lot. But I have to say, if there's a best character on the show, Genesis Live is a good character. It's a character, but I wouldn't say she's the best character, because Bella Shepard's charisma is all that the character has going, and her lack of angst is all the character has going for it. But I have to choose the best, most vivid character. It goes to Thok. Now, Gina Yashera is a large woman. Gina Yashera speaks with a very thick African accent. And the character it's quirky. It's everything that doesn't work about that annoys you about Kurtzman, but done in the correct way. If I put it she is forthright. She cares about her job. She's funny, because Gina, and I think I'm going to put the thing that works the character is the feet of the actress, Gina Yashera, because technically a Jem'Hadar Klingon could not possibly exist. If you know them, and they shouldn't bleed white blood. I remember that. But she is hilarious. She is vivid. She is fun. and that's all down to the way Cher plays her. And Cher is who co-created Arch Abasciola, knows how to be funny, and that is, I think, needs special mentioning. Like, oh, here's the quirky character who actually works. Um, and I wish, I mean, again, there's no way to fix what's wrong with Starfleet Academy because it's finished already, the 2 seasons. I will give the show a chance, you know, but I will be, when I turn on my Xbox and look at my apps, the thing I'm going to look forward to most is watching a Pitt, the Pitt on Thursdays, and just getting through Starfleet Academy. But I know when I watch the Pitt that the Star Trek I remember is still possible. You just have to look at something other than the bad robot way of storytelling. Anyway, this went on too long, but I'm glad I got out of my system, and I will be back later with more stuff for you. Thank you.